Good morning, good evening, wherever you happen to be in this big world. This is David Leichner, I'm the CMO of SQream, and I hope everyone's having a great day. If we could just start off with a raise of hands if you hear me okay, that would be helpful. Great, thank you very much. So we are here today to speak about the new features that we announced last week in the latest version, the first of the decade, SQream DB version 2020.1. I'm here with Arnon Shimoni, who's our product manager and actually one of the original system architects of SQream. Just a little bit of housekeeping. So this webinar will run between 20 and 30 minutes. I appreciate you joining. In fact, I'm actually a little bit surprised at how many people are interested to hear the new features of SQream. This is great. We just finished 2019 was our best year ever, and we gained a lot of new customers. We had some really good product releases, and we've really taken strides forward. So it's really great to see. We now have customers in the United States, in EMEA, in Europe and the Middle East, as well as in the Asia Pacific region. So yeah, it's been a really good year for us, and we're really happy to be providing a lot of value for our customers. So the way that this webinar will work is that we'll take a Q&A at the end. So we'll run through a few slides. If you have any questions, there's a question panel down below, and I'd appreciate if you would write me those questions. If you have any issues of hearing the webcast, or you want to just send some kind of information, please feel welcome to use the chat. And with that, I think we will start the presentation. So Arnon, if you could go to the first slide, I'd like to share some really nice information with our group here. Great. So this is very much hot off the press. It came out of a report that was issued by the Gartner organization just a couple of weeks back, and it's called Selecting SQL Engines for Modern Data Workloads. And as you can see here, they were comparing SQream with some other technologies on the market, some other solutions on the market. And here, as we have seen in the past, we are very much, sometimes they compare us to other GPU-based technologies. And here again, they're comparing us with Kinetica and OmniSci, where they're saying that because they're using in-memory storage, it enables them to provide extremely fast analytics of up to 10 terabytes, 20 terabytes of data. We've actually heard that the limitations are a bit lower, but it doesn't matter. But what they say about SQream is wonderful. SQream DB is architected for massive data stores, and it adds enhancements to the data warehousing lifecycle and speeds up data ingestion. It automatically selects compression schemes based on the data being ingested. So the Gartner organization has recognized that our positioning is very much in the anywhere from 20 terabytes up to petabytes of data, and that by complementing your existing ecosystem, we're able to add really, really fast analytics off of massive data to the results that you're able to achieve today. So we were really happy to see that coming out of the Gartner organization. Next slide, please. So I've been starting off presentations over the last year, and I've been at a lot of events, and I've been asked to speak in different audiences. And really, there are two things that I always ask people to ask themselves about what they're trying to achieve with their massive data stores and on the data and analytics side. So the first question is, do your analytics and reports take too long to be useful, or are you simply not able to execute the analytics that you need to drive your business? And the second is, are you able to analyze enough of your enterprise data to deliver new and critical insights to propel your business and drive competitive advantage? The Gartner organization says that by 2023, organizations that are able to leverage and to maximize the value out of their data, they will take the lead in the industry. And really, it doesn't matter whether you're in telecom, if you're in banking, if you're in ad tech, retail, whatever. If you're not able to take advantage of these data stores, then there will be you will be lacking in on the competitive side and on the differentiation side. So what are we hearing from the customers that we're dealing with, from the people around the world? So um, we're hearing that, first of all, queries are running way too long and sometimes not at all. We have lots of data, but we can only analyze 10% of our data. There's lengthy data preparation time. Some important queries are too complex to run. I've had discussions with very large travel online companies that tell me that after 10 hours, the IT department is cutting or shutting down their queries because they're just taking up too many system resources. Analytic reports that could be inclusive of historical data of 2 to 3 years is only running data for a few weeks or maybe a month because they're just not able to run queries that that are in the 50 to 100 or 100 to 200 terabyte range. And what we're hearing from our customers is that they're very satisfied when we can take a query that's running for a day, from a day and a half, and bring it down to 2 hours. Or if there's a query that's running for 6 hours, and we can bring it down to 10 minutes. This is helping them to get the information they need much more quickly. It's giving them the results that they need in order to really provide the data analytics to the stakeholders, the business stakeholders, in order to propel their business forward. Just on that note, before I hand over to Arnon, we're going to be doing a webinar next month, and that webinar will deal specifically on how chief data officers are able to work together with the business stakeholders in order to create models of ROI, to create models that will help them to understand what the potential is, if they will raise the budgets, and if they will help them to get what they need and to improve the legacy systems that they're currently running in order that they can then analyze a lot more data and do it that much more quickly, what that can provide to the business side. So now I'll hand over to Arnon, who will go into the tech details of the new version. Arnon, please.
Thank you, David. So I want to start by saying this latest version improves performance. We have this thing where we don't release versions that ruin performance. So pretty much every new version of SQream DB comes with some performance enhancements. Sometimes it's a smaller performance enhancement, sometimes it's larger. With this version, with 2020.1, which is of course the first version of this new decade, we thought might as well make it a significant improvement. So we've been using it for a while. We're kind of used to the numbers already, but when we compare the previous version, 2019.2, which is already, it was already kind of like a market leader, and we have customers who are thrilled with the performance there. We actually improved the performance on average by about 33%. Some queries take 11% of the time they took before. So we call this an 82% improvement, an 82.8% speed up. So a query that would take, we're kind of decimating its speed. So that's really, really good, or decimating the time it takes rather. So I want to show you what that looks like with a TPC-DS kind of benchmark. With SQream DB 2019.2, the benchmark on 10 terabytes of data would take a little bit over 10,000 seconds for the entire suite, including loading and querying. With 2020.1, it's 33.6% faster, and it takes just under 7,000 seconds. So that's a pretty nice improvement that we're really proud of. We're really happy with this improvement. But the reason we're actually talking today is not because of performance. It's because we want to discuss some of the new features that we put in. So we've actually been listening to the customers. I know everyone says that, but we've actually been listening. Here's what customers have told us over the past half a year. We want more connectivity to Hadoop. So we've already been doing things with Hadoop, but now we want it to be easier. We don't want to leave the SQL editor. We just want to do everything from one place. A lot of customers have Hive, and they're actually looking to get more data off of Hive. We have a very vocal customer that requested a lot more power for window functions, and that's one of our biggest features, which I'll show you towards the end of the demo. And one of the things that we've heard a lot is fewer restrictions on text processing. Now, text processing is notoriously difficult for for GPUs, which SQreamDB of course uses GPUs, but we've made a serious investment in text processing. So let's actually start with that. Previous versions of SQreamDB actually had two types of text. One of them was called varchar, the other one was called nvarchar. Nvarchar was used primarily for Unicode, UTF-8 encoded text, and they would kind of vary in performance. Today, we're actually introducing the new data type called text, which has a lot fewer limitations on the length, and it pretty significantly improves the performance for anyone doing any kind of text processing. You can still use varchar, you can still use nvarchar, but you might be seeing them used. You might be seeing them referred to as text internally inside the system. So text is essentially limitless. You can load, thousands of characters into a text field without any problem. The outcome for this is actually a lot easier, much improved loading, because now you don't have to say, I'm going to be specifying this as varchar 16 because I know this field is only 16 characters long. You can actually say, I don't know how wide this field is, it's just text. And SQreamDB will do all the optimizations for you, and it will work fast, just as if you knew the length of it. So we'll see what that looks like in just a few seconds. But I want to talk to you about new support for both S3 and HDFS. So one of the things that came up a lot was customers were saying, we can get data from S3, but we want to get it just from within the SQL. We don't want to define anything externally. And the same was true for HDFS. So you could always load data from HDFS systems. There were a variety of ways to do that. But we heard you, and you were basically saying we want the standard copy command and the standard external table command to kind of be able to load HDFS and S3 objects directly. So we've done just that. But before we go into that, I also want to talk about another thing, which is ORC support. So SQreamDB 2020.1 can read Hive ORC files, ORC or ORC, depending on what you want to call that. And these join Parquet and standard text files like CSV and TSV and whatever. ORC files can be manipulated as they're loaded using the external table concept. So just like Parquet files, you could do that beforehand. Now you can do that with ORC files as well. And the performance is pretty good, if I may say so myself. And with that, let's actually take a look at how this looks. So I'm bringing up a SQreamDB terminal. Well, this is actually SQL Workbench. It's a JDBC client, and I'm connected to SQreamDB running on a standard desktop PC in the office in Israel. I'm actually not in Israel, so I'm connected through VPN. And I've created this table. I've called it NBA_S3 so that I know where the data comes from. And I'm already using the text fields here. So I don't know the length of the name field or the team field, so I've just put that down as text. I know that position is just 2 characters long, so I can use varchar 2 for that. So as I said, you can choose to use these when you know these things. And copying data from an S3 bucket is as simple as specifying the bucket name and the object name. In this case, I know it's a CSV file, and I know I want to start from the second row because there's a header row, and this is a Windows formatted file. So I will tell SQreamDB to load this file, and it took 3.4 seconds. That includes the round trip time to Israel, to the office, and the data is loaded. So it's not a big file, but I mean, still it loaded fairly fast, and I can run any kind of query I want on this. So even Fournier has a name which matches this pattern. And I can also see how many values are in the table, if I can get the numbers right. So as I said, it's not a big table, 457 rows, but that's fine. So we talked about ORC files and we talked about Hadoop. So at the same time, I can also say, let's create an external table. So I mentioned external table briefly before. External table is actually not a real table. It's a logical table, which actually points to a file or a set of files somewhere else. So we still have to define its structure, which I've done here, just as we have for the previous file. So I'm going to run that. But what we're actually saying is we're saying, this table is an external table. It will not have contents of its own. The format will be an ORC file, and the path will be on HDFS on this Hadoop name node and this is the path inside HDFS. So I'll go ahead and create this table. And it took about 1 second to create the table, but as I said, this table doesn't have any data built in. So once I run a query off this table, actually what will happen is SQream DB will reach out to these files and we'll try to read them and we'll return the results. So if I had a bunch of ORC files, I could actually go something like this and it would just load all the files from that directory. In this case, we're not going to do that because we have only one file, but I can run, top 10 results from this file, and it took 1.3 seconds. So reading off HDFS is relatively fast. One of the things I mentioned is you can actually manipulate the files as they're loaded. So in order to load files from an external table, what you want to do is basically materialize the table. So the easiest way to do that is just to write, create a table, give it a name, NBA, as select star from NBA HDFS. Now that will materialize the table as is with no changes. But I'm actually not too pleased with this table because there's a weight field here. And this weight field actually is in pounds. Now, I don't know about you. Some of you guys might be from the United States. I'm not. I can't work with pounds. They confuse me. So I'm actually going to convert this to kilograms. So I'm going to say create or replace table NBA just as before. And I'm going to select all the columns as is, but I'm going to take the weight field and I'm going to divide it by 2.205. Now, what that does is it changes from pounds to kilograms. I'm going to give it a new name, weight kilograms, just so that I don't have a mistake. I'm going to create this table as is. And what happens now is SQream DB has read the file again, it's materialized it, and it made the changes. So that took about 2 seconds. I've also added an order by clause just so that I can see who the heaviest person in this table is. So I'm going to run select star from NBA. And our heaviest person, it's actually sorted the other way around. So actually, let's recreate this. Let's do it descending instead. So I'll create it descending, which takes another 2 seconds, and I'll run this again. And I can see that the heaviest person is Nikola Pekovic, who weighs 139 kilos, which is significant weight. So that's it with regards to S3, HDFS, and ORC. If we're going back to the presentation, I do have a couple more things to talk about. So I just want to quickly review the loading options that we showed. I've pretty much shown you how to load CSV files and ORC files through external tables. The CSV was actually loaded with copy from. All of these formats, all of these copy methods, both copy from and external tables support S3, HDFS, and local file systems. If you're writing your own application, you can use the insert method. So that's just writing an insert command like you would with any other SQL database, and you can stream data from your application using Python, Java, JDBC, Node.js, and so on. So these are the main data loading options, which shouldn't be a surprise. I mentioned that we've added window functions to support a very strong customer of ours. And we've actually introduced window frames and frame exclusions. And this is something that we took from ANSI SQL 2011. As far as I can tell, this is pretty unique amongst accelerated databases, whether they have GPUs or not. From what I had a look around, I had a look at MySQL, MariaDB, Snowflake, Redshift, and other databases, and most of them do not support the extent of frame exclusions that SQream DB supports. Postgres introduced this feature late in 2018, so it's a relatively new feature that's been implemented with other DBMSs as well. And frame exclusions supports 3 types of ranges, I would say. So there's rows, ranges, and groups. So rows actually counts number of rows, before or after the window frame. Range performs a logical windowing. So we can say, I want to look 4 days I want to see back 4 days. So create a frame that goes back 4 days or 6 days or whatever. And groups counts all groups that are tied within the same window. This is fairly complex. It's a fairly complicated system as well. I just want to show you what that looks like in the form of a query. So we'll go back here. And I've created a little table called transactions, and I've loaded a little bit of data into it. This table has a transaction ID, a timestamp, customer ID and an amount. So if we just look at the first 10 rows from this table, you'll be able to see, I said there's a transaction ID, a timestamp, customer ID, and an amount. This data is not sorted in any particular order, it's just kind of lumped in there, and it's fairly random. We can run this query, for example, it's a standard query, customer ID, count the timestamp and the amount, and group by the customer ID. So here we're looking at the sum of amount for every specific customer ID. And we can say, let's see, which customer had the most amount of entries, and that's customer 2175, and that's the sum of their amount. So this is a standard SQL query. There's no window functions or anything here. What we can do with a window function is we can actually say, I want to look at the rolling sum. So show me the sum as it goes up. So here we're ordering by the time. So we're telling SQream DB, take the timestamp and start grouping the rows between unbounded, which means between as far back as you care to go, and the current row. So this query is a window function over, I think it's 1,000 rows, and that once again took about 1.7 seconds. And here we can see the rolling sum. So what we'll see is the sum going up and up and up as we go along. Now this in itself is kind of standard window function capabilities. But what isn't standard is when we add a frame exclusion. So we can say, take the same query, show me all the frame beforehand, unbounded preceding and current row, but exclude the current row. So what I'll be looking at now is the sum until this point. So for the first row, that should be blank. That should be a null value. So there is no rolling value until here. So that's null. And then every new row has the sum until that row, not including it. So this is something that's fairly new. It's new in SQream DB. It's a fairly new functionality that doesn't exist in a whole lot of other DBMSs, and we're very, very proud of this feature. And if we remember beforehand, we had user, I think it was customer ID 275. We can just see what that customer looks like. So we can add like a where clause to kind of look at that. And we can see just for customer ID 2175, what his rolling sum was until that point. There are a variety of applications where this is useful. From what we hear, this is actually very interesting for kind of like anomaly detection, primarily with banks and financial institutions, but that's kind of out of my scope. So I'm not a financial person, so I don't know a whole lot about this. So I'll leave it at that. So I said window functions, we're really excited about this feature. There is one more thing that I'd like to mention. This is not an entirely new feature. We've had this for a while, but we've kind of fixed it up a little bit. So SQream DB actually allows you to do kind of flexible resource allocation. So what this allows you to do is assign resource groups or compute groups really to different users, use cases, or line of business. So let's say you have data engineers and reports. And you want to assign a specific amount of dedicated resources for your data engineers so that they can get what they need done. So you can actually tell SQream DB, assign these few workers, this resource group, assign that just to the data engineers. So any report that tries to run, it will go to the load balancer, and the load balancer will redirect it to the next available instance or the next available worker that is not assigned to the data engineers. The beauty of this is it can actually be changed on the fly. It can be changed without having to reconfigure the entire system. And I've written a guide about that, so you can read all about this on our documentation site. It's called Workload Manager, featured guide Workloads Manager, and you can see how to create an example service group where, for example, we're allocating specific resources for the ETL queue, so that ETL processes will always go through without having to interrupt any other workers, any other people. With that, I'd also like to mention we've recently launched a new documentation website. It's available at docs.sqream.com. We've put a lot of effort into this documentation. There's around 500 pages of documentation spanning 220 different topics. You can get it as a PDF if you want to read it in your spare time on your ebook. I don't recommend reading it in your spare time. Read it when you have to. But there are a lot of topics there. You can have a look through the references, through the guides, and just figure out what you need to do with SQream DB. So we're really, really happy with this new documentation. One final thing, getting SQream DB version 2020.1. So If you have a previous version, contact your account manager and we'll help you upgrade. And if you don't have SQream DB yet, visit SQream.com/try and we'll hook you up. That's about it from my side.
Arnaud, that was great. And we have a bunch of questions that have come in. In fact, you just answered the first one, which is how can I try SQream? So,
right. Okay. So
excellent.
you know what? Either write to me or David, or visit SQream.com/try. You have to fill in your name and email and that kind of stuff, and we'll be in touch.
Cool, great. So I'll just run through, there are a few questions that came in. Chris asked a question, can I work with SQream DB without duplicating the data in Hadoop?
Yes, you can. So what we've seen, I showed that with the external table concept. The external table doesn't actually materialize all the data into SQream DB until it has to. So depends on the query that you run. We might be scanning, a single file, or we might be scanning a bunch of files. That's not the recommended way of working with SQream DB, by the way. We do like having the data in SQream DB because we can help assure that the data is, resilient and reliable and durable, and SQream DB is kind of ACID compliant. So we do like having the data inside. We can make a lot more guarantees on the data. Having said that, you can keep your data in HDFS or S3 and access it only as you require.
Okay, great. And I want to apologize in advance. We have about 2-3 minutes left. So if I don't get to all of the questions, we will definitely contact you offline. The next one is from Raj, and he asked, they have version SQream DB 2.13, and just wants to know what to do in order to upgrade, and what's the migration path.
Right. So the upgrade is fairly simple. We provide you with a new package. It takes about 2 minutes. There is a small upgrade process that you need to do that just touches the metadata. So all the data remains on disk. We don't rewrite it. We don't change it. With that being said, contact your account manager. It shouldn't take more than 2 minutes to do the entire upgrade.
Okay, great. The next question is, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right, is from Arjun. If I use Tableau, will Tableau make use of the new functions like the text functionality?
Yeah, so text functionality, absolutely. The mapping is done inside the drivers, so JDBC and ODBC, which both work with Tableau today. So yeah, Tableau and other visualizers will make use of the text functionality. With other things, it kind of depends on the tool. So some versions of some applications might be able to, for example, make use of the window exclusion, the frame exclusions, but some tools may not. So in some cases, if you know how to write a query better, you can actually tell Tableau, here's a custom SQL function that I wrote, just pass it through and don't rewrite it for me. So if it doesn't do it automatically, you can tell it to. So absolutely.
Okay, great. Actually, Greg has a few questions. I don't think we can take them all because we're running out of time, but we can get you offline. But actually, 2 questions. Like one you just answered, which was, does SQream play nice with Tableau? So maybe you can just expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so through JDBC or ODBC, SQream DB plays very nice with Tableau. We're actually working with them right now to be in their connector catalog, which is something that's coming very, very soon in the next version of Tableau. So that's going to be based on JDBC, which is pretty good. Today, you can get SQream DB working with Tableau through ODBC, which is also pretty good.
I think most of our, correct me if I'm wrong, most of our customers are running on Tableau, in addition to many other things, Spotfire and Click and other things, but Tableau is certainly one of the popular visualizers.
Yeah, it is. I don't know the exact numbers, but yeah, we have a bunch.
Okay, and Craig had another question about Tableau. Our organization is running into performance issues with Tableau extracts. Is SQream also meant to provide fast ad hoc reporting in the nature of 0.5 to 5 seconds?
0.5 might be, that's going to depend on the size of the data, of course. We have customers that do get about 1 second response times from their dashboards. SQream DB is primarily geared towards larger data sets, and that can take a little bit longer. I mean, you saw today, even with relatively small queries, because I was running through VPN, it took about 1.5 seconds to answer most queries. That will be lower when you're running it in your data center or even in the cloud. But yeah, so SQream DB is definitely designed for this ad hoc kind of workloads. We've been talking about this quite a lot, actually. And we have a bunch of case studies on our website where we talk about the kind of ad hoc stuff that we did with customers. So absolutely.
Great. Well, Arnon, we're just coming up on the half hour. So, I'd like to thank you for taking the time today, and I'm sure everyone else appreciates it as well. And of course, I'd like to take the time for our audience. As I said, I didn't expect this many people to be joining. It's really a pleasure. And we'll be sending out an email in the next couple of days about our next webinar, which will take place next month. And we'll be at a few of the events around. Next week we're in New York at the Chief Data and Analytics Financial Services event in New York City. A week after that we'll be in London at the Chief Data and Analytics event there. The week after that we'll be in Warsaw. At the end of the month we'll be also at the Oracle event in Santa Clara, as well as the MWC, the Mobile World Congress event. So, we're really getting out there, and hopefully if some of you will be joining some of these events, we'd really like you to come by and, and meet us in person. And of course, as Arnon mentioned, feel free to drop him an email at arnon@sqream.com or myself, David, at sqream.com, or to visit us online. And we really look forward to also meeting you in person and also helping you to realize the same kind of value that we've been able to provide to the customers that we're working with around the world. And we look forward to speaking to you again online next month and offline as soon as you'd like. So have a good morning, evening, afternoon, depending where you are in the world. And again, thank you very much for attending this webinar.